Today for Devotions with Daniella, we are reading from the first book of Daniella, Uncultured. This is about growing up in the children of God and going into the cult of the U.S. Army. And I was thrown out of the cult at 15, came to America, put myself through high school in 2 years, and tried to figure out college. Found myself an international chess team that I got along with. But even with all the trappings of friends and happiness, I still felt alone. I was scared about how my past, which I never talked about with anyone, would affect my future if anyone found out. What little grasp I had on a feeling of belonging depended on me keeping huge parts of myself a secret. I knew if I told people who I truly was, what I'd really been through, they'd realize I was too weird, even for this band of misfits. I was always too much, and I wasn't worth the drama. So I kept my secrets, trying to fit into America and the somewhat nerdy version of normal that felt accessible to me. I worked, I studied, I played chess. When I got the opportunity to study abroad in Germany in exchange for another female chess player, I took it. I was shocked at how American I felt on German soil, and how easily I made friends, as if that extra layer of being an outsider made me more comfortable in my own skin. In Germany, there was no expectation of me fitting in or assimilating, and the people I met had no way of knowing how authentic of an American I wasn't. So I found I could relax into myself a little more. Neurodivergent people have also noted that traveling is relaxing for them because they don't have to try to fit in. They're just assumed to be strange because they're foreign. The world opened to me in new ways while I was abroad, and when I came home, my life unfolded like a storybook. It's a compelling story, the kind people love to hear. It's the story of a survivor, working hard, overcoming adversity, and finding her place in the world. At the end of the semester, I graduated as valedictorian. I also continued to take calls from the military recruiters I'd started talking to in high school, and made the decision to commission into the U.S. Army. That could have been the feel-good ending to the emotional roller coaster of my life, with a heavy dose of patriotism to boot. And it might have been all there was to my story if I hadn't met Jeff, which is what made this the hardest chapter to write. He drew all eyes when he walked into my college biology class, tall, with a presence that demanded attention. Even at 21, his hawkish green eyes surveyed the room before striding over and sitting on the bench beside me. His hair was perfect, even up close, not a single strand out of place. He kind of looked like Charlie Kirk, honestly. "I'm Jeff," he said without hesitation. "I'm Danny," I said, cringing at the uncertainty in my voice as I scooted farther back on the bench. "Is that a question? Don't you know who you are?" Oh boy. Pretty white American boys were not my type. This Jeff guy was barking up the wrong tree. But Jeff was commanding from day one. He kept barking, and I didn't run, though there was a part of me that knew that maybe I should. Some inner signal that knew something was wrong when guys were so confident. Biology was one of the 3 science classes I had to take to earn my literature degree. The classes where I felt totally out of control and hyper aware that the fragile life I was cobbling together out of spite and ideas and scholarship and hard work could all be ripped away in a heartbeat. I was terrified I would fail. I was terrified they'd realize I was an imposter all along, that I had not truly earned or deserved the seat in which I sat. I worried they could somehow send me back to wherever I was from. Maybe that's what he'd been looking for that day he chose me. Maybe guys like him have an inner signal too, one that alerts them to pretty girls who hate themselves. But still, he chose me. He was good at science and decided to help me. He said we'd study together, so we did. Again and again, he picked me, and no one had ever taught me how to say no. He'd regale me with tales of his nightly exploits chasing women before turning and asking me out yet again. I always laughed, explaining I could never date a bigger player than myself. If I was honest with myself, it made me feel better that somebody was. I was still getting used to America's strange rules about sex, how it was both bad but also something everyone was obsessed with, how men wanted girls to be sweet and pure but also skilled and willing to put out, how someone like Jeff was manly for sleeping with a lot of people, but I could be called a slut for doing the same. Jeff didn't seem to care about any of that. We started hanging out more and more, but it wasn't romantic. It was almost like friends, like I was one of the guys. Almost, but not quite. I couldn't put my finger on it. We spent our evenings at his place studying and talking. He never made me feel unsafe, never did anything. I was so used to men looking at me like they were picturing me with my clothes off, or sucking in their breath when I stood up in an overtly sexy manner. There was always a feeling of self-consciousness, of knowing what was on a guy's mind and wondering what would happen next. I knew how to use that, but not with Jeff. For the first time, maybe in my whole life, I didn't feel objectified. I'd gotten so tired of the story I'd concocted about who I was and where I came from, the loose details I'd strung together about being the kid of international missionaries, of never being able to go deeper than the surface. It was the story I told everyone, even my close friends, who I still found ways to hold at arm's length. But one day, I told him everything, the cult, all of it. And he listened. He was interested, but not in the way other people were interested. Not like the well-meaning school counselors or the people I've met since then, with the gleam of voyeuristic thrill in their eyes. Or the ones who ask annoying, stereotypical questions they think they already know the answers to, who tell me I'm nothing like what a cult survivor must be like, even though I'm the first real one they've met. Jeff's response was different. Very different. We'll read the rest tomorrow. You can get signed copies of Uncultured here or listen to me read it to you anywhere you get your audiobooks.